Hello YouTube chess lovers and my friends, this is Gunjan here. Welcome to the 25th episode of Dirty Chess Tricks. In this episode, I'm going to show you some amazing tricks against Queen A5 Scandinavian Defense, which arises after the move order E4, D5, E captures D5, Queen captures D5, Knight to C3, and now Queen to A5. This is one of the good reply to the E4, and even in the modern world it is considered as reliable weapon. Well, to some extent it's true, but I am going to show you a very tricky move order which will contain a lot of tricks. If your opponent doesn't know the theory in depth, then he might end up at the trouble line and the game can finish very quickly. Here I'm proposing that you should continue with the main line, that is D4, and now doesn't matter how black responds. So for example, black can play over here C6, or the most popular move, that is Knight to F6, and after that we are going to continue with the move Knight to F3. Now if your opponent plays bishop to G4 at this point, then it will transpose to the line which we are going to see at the later part. So the good point is there are not much deviation can be done by the black. Okay, C6. And now we are going to play this amazing move, Knight to E5. Now in order to understand Knight to E5 move, first of all you need to know what is black idea. Well, in most of the cases what black wants to do is he wants to put this bishop outside the pawn chain before he commit the E6, and Knight to E5 completely prevent this idea. Now the main move over here is bishop to E6, which we are going to see at the later part. But the first obvious move I need to consider is what happens if your opponent plays bishop to F5, which in this position most frequently played move as per the database and the live book. Personally, I found that this is a great mistake, and here White revealed his amazing attacking idea, starting with the move G4. Well, believe it or not, the only move to keep black in the game, that is bishop to E6, which I doubt that if your opponent see this position first time, then he may able to find it. Okay, before we look at bishop to E6, let's see what's wrong with other moves. So the first move I want to consider is bishop to C8, which already look very ugly, but nevertheless White get tremendous initiative after bishop to C4. So attacking F7, black is forced to move E6. Here White should continue immediately with the move G5, attacking the knight. And now there are three squares where black knight can retrieve. Amongst them, Knight to D5 looks more logical, as this knight is pressurizing the C3 square, and black's idea is if White take this knight, then he can capture back with the E pawn, and that way his light square bishop get liberated. Now instead of Knight to D5, other moves I have covered in the PGN, which is available in the description, so kindly go through them. After Knight to D5, White play is very much forceful. Here White will continue with the move Queen to H5, attacking F7, so black has to defend it. If Queen to C7, then G6 is a very strong reply, so at this point G6 looks more natural. After that, White will still attacking F7 with the move Queen to F3. And the only way to defend is now to play Queen to C7. Afterwards, White has this lethal move, Knight to E4. So simple idea, bishop captures knight and Knight to F6 check. And it's not easy to defend this. For example, in one game, my opponent continued here with the move bishop to G7, covering the F6 square. But then comes the ultimate shot, Knight to D6 check. Black doesn't have any good choice, black has to accept this piece. And after that, I come up with queen check, king to d8, queen takes bishop, rook to f8, and now the simplest is I capture this dangerous knight, and after pawn recapture, I capture the h7 pawn. So just in the opening, not only black king is misplaced, but White is a clear 2 pawn up. The second dubious move I want to consider is bishop to E4, which has the idea of rerouting the bishop to the D5 square. But here White has this ultimate reply, And in the most of the e4 bishop line, you have to remember this move, that is knight to c4, attacking the queen, queen to c7, and now you simply take this bishop, and after knight captures, here my recommendation is you continue attacking on the black structure with the move queen to f3, attacking the knight. If knight to d6, then bishop to f4 is a very strong reply. So here black has the obvious choice, that is knight to f6, and after that we are going to keep rolling our initiative with the move bishop to f4, attacking the queen, queen to d8, and now another forcing move g5, attacking the knight, and after the move knight to d5, we are going to place this bishop on a wonderful diagonal with the move bishop to g3. Black's obvious choice over here is to play e6 to liberate his other bishop, but now comes another attacking blow, knight to e5, attacking f7. So black hand is forced. Black has to play queen to e7, defending f7. But once the queen goes to the e7, then it's very hard for the black to develop his king side pieces. And this is exactly the feature of this game. I reached this position against 2000 rated player, where I continue with the move h4, defending the g5. My opponent responded with the move knight to d7, and now I castle on the queen side. You may ask, well, what's the point? Even black can castle at this point, right? Well, no. Can you find out why? White has this dazzling reply, knight captures c6, bam! Well, the first cute point behind it, that if black foolishly capture this knight, then after bishop to a6, it's a checkmate. And apart from it, black doesn't have any good choice. For example, if queen try to run away, let's say queen to e8, then after knight to h7, we still have a checkmate. So considering all this, my opponent find out that he cannot castle on the queen side. So that leads to the only good reply, that is knight captures e5, and after bishop captures, and now he decided to castle. But the good point about these structures are white always keep the attacking hand. Here white continue with the move c4, hitting the knight, knight to b6, and now a retrieving but a good attacking move, bishop to g3. So still black has to solve his king side pieces, and in fact my opponent played the obvious looking move h6, attacking g5, but here he get the ultimate shock, queen to f4, and black position is completely collapsing. He played queen to d6, so trying to exchange queen by giving up a pawn, but he completely overlooked white's next reply, that is queen captures, bishop captures, bishop captures, rook captures, and now simple move c5, nabbing a piece. Okay, now let's see the third and the most popular move in this position, that is bishop to g6. Well, against this I'm recommending that you should start harassing this bishop immediately with the move h4. Now the same position can be arrived via different move order. So if you remember, at this position, instead of c6, if your opponent played the move bishop to g4, then you can continue with the move h3, and after the move bishop to h5, we can play the move g4, bishop to g6, knight to e5, and after the move c6, we play h4, and we got the same plot. Well, h4 doesn't create a threat yet because black has always the move bishop to e4. So accordingly, most frequent reply played over here is e6. Apart from e6, black has other replies such as immediately bishop to e4 and knight b to d7, and against each of them I had covered a sample line which is available in the PGN. So kindly go through it. Okay, let's consider the move e6. Well, here many games continue with the move h5, which I personally believe that it is a big time inaccuracy, because instead of that white has this lethal reply f3. So completely stopping bishop to e4 idea, and now indeed white is threatening the move h5. So black doesn't have any choice. Black has to give his bishop some air, and accordingly h6 or h5 fits in the bill. Now to illustrate the danger in this position, I like to show you one of my game against a 2200 rated player, where here he continued with the move h6, and as soon as h6 or h5 comes on the board, it's time to capture this bishop with the knight, giving black some horrible pawn. And now I played a very strong move, queen to e2, attacking e6. Well, believe it or not, but as per the position, king to d7 is the best reply. But if the 2200 rated can't spot it, then how many opponent will spot that? Nevertheless, I have covered that line in the PGN, but in the game he decided to play the obvious move, king to f7, which protects both the pawn, but it turns out that this is a big time disaster. Here white continues his attack with the move g5, hitting the knight. My opponent captured the pawn, and now I reveal my nasty idea with the move bishop to h3, attacking e6. So now there is no decent way to defend e6 except the move which is played in the game, that is g4, attacking the bishop. I simply capture this pawn, and after knight captures, pawn captures, there are some open f-file disasters are looming. My opponent tried to defend his position with the move knight to d7. I castle on the king side with a check. Kindly note, if knight to f6, then g5 will nab a piece, so that's not good. And in the game he decided to run away with the king, that is king to e7. But after that, bishop to g5, attacking the king, knight to f6, and now the obvious move, rook a to e1, and black is completely defenseless. The game finished very quickly. He played king to d8, I captured the e6 pawn, and now he played bishop to b4, which activate my rook instantly with the move rook to e5, attacking the queen, queen to c7, and now the super attacking blow, rook captures f6, bam! Black cannot capture this because at the end he will be checkmated. In the game he decided to play bishop to e7, but then comes rook check, and after rook takes and bishop captures e7, black has to simply resign. Okay, so the fourth and the final move I want to consider is bishop to e6, which as per the situation is probably the best reply. But nevertheless, against it, I'm going to show you once again a tricky setup. Here I'm proposing that I should play the move bishop to c4. Now mainly there are two moves tried in this position. Amongst them, bishop captures c4 is the main reply. But personally, I think knight to g4 required more attention as it wins a pawn. If your opponent plays other moves such as knight b to d7, then I have attached a sample line which is available in the PGN. So let's see the first obvious reply, that is bishop captures c4. Well, after that our move is very obvious. We are going to recapture with the knight, attacking the queen, and after queen to c7 we are going to play the move queen to f3, which sets up a very nasty trick, and I think many of your opponent will straight away fall into it, as after the obvious move e6, which looks very natural as it free up the dark square bishop, but here it's a big time problem because white has this move in the picture, that is bishop to f4, attacking the queen, queen to d8, now g5, hitting the knight, and after knight to d5, white has this wonderful move knight to e4, which create an unavoidable threat. The best line goes over here is knight captures f4, but after queen captures f4, it's very clear that there is something will land on d6. After bishop to e7, knight d6 check, and after bishop captures, knight captures, king to e7, white can simply win this b7 pawn, as in the resulting position, that is, let's say queen to d7 and knight to c5, not only white is a clear pawn up, but black king is clearly misplaced. Okay, let's see one of the most critical reply by black over here, that is knight captures g4. Well, here black's idea is when white captures this bishop, which at first sight looks very threatening, black has this move in the picture, that is knight captures e5. So black is arguing that he is a clear pawn up and white doesn't have any attack to speak of. Well, it's true to some extent, but I think white can still drum up some counterplay. Here I'm proposing that white should immediately regain his pawn with the move bishop to c8, and after queen to c7, bishop captures b7, queen captures b7, and pawn captures e5. So you can already see that white has isolated some queen pawns, and now to illustrate the further plan, I like to show you one of my game against a national master. Here my opponent continued with the move e6. I responded with the move rook to g1. So my idea is to stop his kingside piece development. My opponent responded with the move knight to d7, attacking e5. I played queen to e2, defending the e5, and now he played the obvious move g6 to develop the bishop on the g7 square. No matter, I responded with the move b3, and after the move bishop to g7, I simply defend my pawn with the move f4. My opponent castled on the king side, and now come the strongest move of the game, that is bishop to a3, attacking the rook, rook to d8, and now bishop to e7, rook to e8, and bishop to d6. So you can already see that that bishop is wonderfully placed on the d6 square. Probably my opponent didn't like it, so he played bishop to f8, challenging that bishop. I simply castle on the queen side, and after bishop captures and rook captures, step by step white has improved his position. He continued here with the move knight to c5. I attack his knight with the move queen to c4, and he defended with the move queen to b6. Okay, it's time to double up, so I played rook g to d1. My opponent responded here with the move a5, and now queen to d4. So pinning down the knight. My opponent defended his queen with the move rook to b8. I played king to b2, and now he played rook e to c8. So you can already see that black position is completely tied down, and now it's time to blow up his position. After some thinking, I indeed find one of the best reply in the position, that is f5. My opponent captured this pawn, and now I reveal my nasty idea, that is knight to d5, attacking the queen. He played queen to a7, but this straight away ran into the tactics with the lovely move rook to d7. So the knight cannot take this rook, and if the queen takes, then knight to f6 will nab a queen. So here my opponent played rook to b7. Well, after that the task becomes very easy. I give knight check, and after king to f8, I wonder if you can spot white's best reply. Kindly pause the video and find out what is the best reply or the sequence for the white. Well, I hope you find this wonderful sequence. There's a mate in 5, guys, and it goes like this: rook check, rook takes, queen takes, king to g7, and now knight to f5 wins the game on the spot. So this game will highlight the problem in the black camp and how you can exploit those problems. Considering whatever we have seen so far, it is very obvious that if your opponent played bishop to f5, then you should be very delighted. Okay, let's consider the theoretical move bishop to e6. Well, personally I found that this is a very artificial move, and the way you can exploit this is bishop to c4. In other words, I'm pretty much recommending the same setup, so it will be easy for you to remember all this stuff. There are only 2 good moves over here, and let's see each by turn. The first move I want to consider is bishop captures c4, which more or less create the same trick after knight captures c4. Here queen to c7 is a very bad reply. The simple reason is after queen to f3, e6, bishop to f4, queen to d8, and now castle on the queen side. White has completely finished his piece development, where black has only developed a one piece. So this is a horrible situation for the black. So accordingly here black has to play queen to d8. After that we are going to continue with the move bishop to g5, and after the move e6 we take this knight, and after queen takes, castle on the king side, knight to d7, and now knight to e4. So not only hitting the queen, but once the queen moves, then we have knight check, bishop takes, knight takes, king to e7, and knight captures b7 with a misplaced king and a pawn advantage. Kindly note, queen to b8 doesn't regain the pawn, because after knight to a5 we are hitting the c6, and when black defended we can play the move knight to c4, and white has consolidated his extra pawn. Probably the most critical variation against knight to e5 setup is knight b to d7 at this point. Black's idea is after bishop captures e6, black will take this knight, and as many pieces are going to exchange, white advantage will slowly slip away. Well, it's not true, because after bishop to b3 white obtain a bishop pair, and black position is not easy to handle. There are two moves tried at this position. The first move I want to consider is rook to d8, which surprisingly enough one high rank opponent tried against me, but I think the simple refutation is after bishop to d2 black is going to lose in exchange. As the knight is hanging, black is forced to play rook captures d4, as after knight to g6 we have this wonderful move knight to d5, which actually nab a queen. So rook to d4 is forced at this point. After that white has this simple but very effective move knight to e2, which will nab an exchange. So instead of rook to d8, as per the theory, black should play the move knight to g6, which has a very simple plan to play e6, get the dark square bishop out, and castle on the king side. But I think this setup has one good drawback, and the following model game will show you not only white has some good tricks along the line, but white attacking chances are not to be underestimated. In this game, a grandmaster crushes his international master opponent very instructively. White continue with the move bishop to d2, so there is an x-ray on queen, so black responded with the move queen to c7, and now the obvious move queen to f3. Black execute his plan, that is e6, and after knight to e4 he responded with the move bishop to e7. Instead of bishop captures e7, if white capture this knight, then after queen captures e4, white queen is very aggressively placed. That's why in the game bishop to e7 happens. White continue here with the move h4, and this is a very important move in this situation, because not only this h pawn is hitting the g6 knight and creates some problems, but it also gains space on the king side. Obviously black has to stop it, so in the game he played h5, and now the consolidating move c3. Black castle on the queen side, and white played the obvious move knight to g5, attacking f7, which black defended with the move bishop to d6, and now white castle on the queen side. So at first sight it looks like there is not much happening in the position and black is doing very good. But in few moves you are going to see the dark side of the structure. In the game black responded with the move rook h to f8, so overprotecting the f7, and now white shows the problem in the position with a wonderful move bishop to c2, attacking the knight, and black has to play a very accurate move. There's a trick in the position. If your opponent played the move knight to f4, which at first sight looks very natural, but then the problems start appearing with the move g3, knight to d5 and c4, and no matter however this knight will go, black will lose a piece. So for example, if knight to b4, then we have c5, and after knight captures a2 and king to b1, black is going to lose a piece. So that means black has to go passive, and here he has to play the only move, knight to e7. If he doesn't move the knight, then pawn structure will be completely ruined. So knight move is pretty much forced. Okay, white continue with his energetic style with the move knight to e4, hitting the bishop, hitting the knight. So black is obliged to capture this knight. Afterwards, white capture with the bishop. What I like about this game is every move was very much forceful, and black has to respond to the white attack. Okay, there's a threat on h5, so black has to defend with the move g6. And now indeed white shows why bishop pair are so much important. He continued with the move bishop to h6, hitting the rook, rook to h8, and now bishop to g5. So not only pinning the knight, but there's a problem on f7. So black is forced to defend that pawn. f5 is a very bad move. The simple reason is after bishop to c2, there's a concrete weakness on e6, which can be later on exploited on the e file. So that's why in the game, black decided to keep his position flexible and played the move rook h to f8. After that, white continued his attack with the move c4. Another superb move. So white is now indeed threatening the move c5 and nabbing a piece. So once again black has to respond to this move, and in fact he did by playing c5 himself. No matter, white took this pawn, and after bishop takes, can you believe white obtained a winning position? It doesn't look like, right? But it is. Let me show you how. So first of all, white exchanged one pair of rook, and in the view of f7 pawn hangs, black has to play king to f8. Now white activate his rook with the move rook check, and after king to c8, bishop to h6 stamped the victory. The reason is after the move played in the game, that is rook to h8, white has this winning move, queen captures f7, and not only e6 pawn drops. Okay, let me show you. If queen to b6, then we have bishop to f8, and black is completely busted. And instead of that, if black foolishly take this bishop, then at the end we have checkmate. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoy and learn this wonderful setup against queen to a5 Scandinavian. The setup I have recommended throughout the video is very attacking, and you will see the potential of this line as soon as you try to implement in your game. Well, thank you for watching this video. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment on my video, and I'll meet you in my next episode very soon. Bye and take care. And here is my vital point. In order to free up black's queenside piece development, black has to either move his d pawn or b pawn. And whenever it happens, what we are going to do is we are going to exchange this pawn and remain a pawn up for the rest of the game. But here black revealed his trick after the move knight to f6. Well, it's very funny that at first sight it looks like white has a problem on d4, but now black has really tricked the white and shows that the real problem exists on the e4 square.